Good morning. So our talk topic today was actually picked a year ago, just so you know. It wasn't like just overnight or relevant to anything this week, and it's called The Highest Good for All. And the vision that it talks about, for those of you who have been following along know that we're working on the idea of a world that works for all, creating a world that works for all, and that a great many religious science churches around the country and around the world are working on the same thing. So the vision that's being called forward with this is we see our communities as empowered with the realization of unity and wholeness, from which flows the ultimate healing power of forgiveness and love. Breathe that in for a moment with me. Isn't that a beautiful vision? So it's been an interesting week. It's been a rough week for me. Tuesday, my wife backed the car out of the garage and took off the right-hand side mirror on our brand new car. And then yesterday, the Huskies lost, the Ducks lost, and I have to listen to Luke in his USC shirt gloat over it. Was there anything else that happened this week? Nothing that important, no. So many of us had, of course, a week with the election where it brought up a whole lot of stuff, right? Some are celebrating, some are not. And I wanted to talk about that because I'd rather talk about it than sweep it under the carpet and do what we can call a spiritual bypass. Oh, it's all good, it's all good. I had a friend of mine who was going through a really rough divorce, and at one point in time, this is a minister friend of mine, she said that if I hear one more, it's all good, I'm going to punch somebody in the face who says that to me. So sometimes we need to acknowledge our human sense and our human feelings. And what I want to talk about isn't politics. It's not politics. It might look like it's playing out in the political field, but it's actually values. It's our values. And so there's an appearance out there that's a reflection of what's within. What's out here is always a reflection of what's within, right? So we go first. So this is not about any two people. This is not about Donald. This is not about Hillary. This is not about that. This is about what do we hold dear, because there are so many people that are upset about this election. And no matter what was happening in the election, people were going to be upset, right? No matter what the outcome. Because we watched the nation become very divided, very polarized. And so it didn't matter which candidate won, there were going to be hurt feelings around that. So right now, many people are feeling that the very values upon which this country has been established are in danger. And I'm just going to acknowledge that. There are many people who feel that. I'm not saying that they are or they aren't, but there are many people who are feeling that way. If, like me, you watch Facebook or you watch the news, you've seen a lot of people sharing a lot of fears and a lot of anger and a lot of frustration. And some of the values are things like life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, liberty and justice for all. And I love at the base of the Statue of Liberty is that wonderful poem that says, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses, yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door." And so these are the kind of the principles upon which we're founded. This country is founded. And so there's a challenge, right? Yeah. And so there's a feeling that they've been rejected. Now, the truth of the matter is, as somebody pointed out to me, we don't know. All that's out in the future. We don't know yet. We don't know what's going to happen. But like I talked about last week, our minds can spin up stories when we're in fear, right? We can use our imagination to spin out stories. And so what I want to invite us to do is to take a breath with that whole process. So many people feel like there's been a setback. And I want to talk about, I love that Sue reminded me of the Bhagavad Gita, which I'm doing the class on. And in the Bhagavad Gita, right at the very start of it, the main character, one of the two main characters is Arjuna. And Arjuna is caught between a rock and a hard place. He's caught having to go to war to defend some of his kin, some of his relatives and teachers, by fighting some of his other relatives and teachers. And he's stuck in the middle of this battlefield with this war about to start, this big battle about to start, and he knows the people he loves are going to be killed on both sides. And finally, he just lays down, and he's like the great warrior leader, of this clan, and he just lays down his sword and says, "I'm not going to fight. I'm not going to do it." And his charioteer, Krishna, who is later revealed as God in form, basically says, you have to do it. You have to do it. This is what you're called here to do. So we feel a setback, and this is a wake-up call. This is a wake-up call for all of us, no matter who you voted for or didn't vote for. This is a wake-up call for all of us. What do we value? What do I value? In the case of Krishna, in the case of Arjuna, what happened when he wrestled with this, when he finally took this thing and wrestled with it, when he finally followed his spiritual teacher Krishna, Krishna reveals his entire God nature to him. This is an opportunity for us to see more of God than we've ever experienced before. But we have to be conscious in this process. See, Arjuna questioned, Arjuna asked, Arjuna almost pushed Krishna. Show me more, tell me more, guide me in this process. What do I need to do here? Who do I need to be? What do I need to learn? And these are the questions that we should be asking the Spirit within us right here and right now. Okay? We are caught up right now as we always are, in the dance between our spiritual nature and our human nature. In our spiritual nature, we know that all is well, right? Okay? In our human nature, we have feelings. And this happens a lot. Somebody passes away, and we know that they're okay, and yet we still miss the physical presence of them, right? And so we get caught up in this a lot. And we get reminded that we're spiritual beings having spiritual experiences in human form. We're spiritual beings, we all got that, having spiritual experiences. All of these experiences are spiritual experiences. We talked last week about the law is here to help us to awaken to our divinity, the law of cause and effect. And so when we see the effects, we get back to the cause. What was the cause? What did I put forward? What am I holding in consciousness? What are we collectively holding in consciousness? To help us to wake up, not to blame anybody, not to punish us, but to help us to wake up to the divinity that you and I already are. Because that's who you and I are. And so in this process, as a human being, it's okay to grieve if that's what you're feeling. It's okay to celebrate if that's what you're feeling. Grieving is a sense of suffering over a loss. If you've experienced a loss of any kind, it's okay to grieve that. It's okay to feel that. Sometimes we get known as the happy, happy, joy, joy church, where we're not supposed to really feel any pain or anything like that. And it's okay to feel that loss. If you have a pulse, you should be feeling, something whenever something like that happens. The challenge is to not give in to the fear. It's okay to notice, I'm also feeling afraid, but to not give in to that. See, the fear is that belief in separation talking to us. The fear says that something's going to happen, and so we start to make up the stories of what's going to happen. And when we start to make up stories, we can get real imaginative, right? We get real imaginative. The more interesting question is, what stories do I want to make up? What do I want to create? Because if I create out of my beliefs, if I create out of my stories, what is it that I want to make up? What is the story that I want to bring forward? Okay? The point of power is now. The only place where we can create is the now. Right now there's a whole lot of people who are looking back and saying who's to blame for this election result, right? And it's the Republicans are to blame, the liberals are to blame, whoever, the non-voters, the independent voters, all these people, all the finger pointing is going on. You know what? That's worthless. That's useless. It's a complete waste of time. What the question is where do I want to go from here? Where do we as a nation want to go from here? And I want to move towards a greater understanding and a greater standing in our spiritual principles, our principles of oneness, our principles of compassion and love, our principles of bringing light forward. Okay? We stand in that, and if we stand in that strongly, we stand in this wake-up call. Ernest Holmes talks about, he takes Paul's quote from the Ephesians, "Be strong in the Lord and the power of his might." And here's what he says about that. To be strong in the Lord is to be sure of ourselves, because we are sure of the principle of life which manifests itself through us. See, we're dealing not with personality, we're dealing with principle of life. And when we understand that God is all there is, God is all there is, all the time. I love how Sue just opened that treatment. There's only one life. There's only one. Okay? And when we recognize that, we can start to work on the fact, we can start to move out of the fear. We can start to say, wait a minute, time out to all my fears, to all my stuff. There's only one life. A friend of mine posted on Facebook recently that she was the other day that she was teaching foundations class, and she knew she was going to have the question of, but I prayed for a different result in the election, and how do I deal with the unanswered prayer? And the truth of the matter is, prayer is always answered. The universe always says yes. Okay? Can we wait for the full answer? See, this might be part of the yes. Years ago, when I was in my ministry, when I was early in my ministry, I was sitting in the Roseburg Church, and I woke up and I remember it very clearly, January 1st of 2010, I think it was, and said, you know what, I am ready to move into my ministry. I'm ready to move into my ministry. My wife and I had been kind of floating and hanging out, and we were doing some good stuff in the Roseburg Church, but it wasn't my ministry, it wasn't our ministry as I thought. And I was very clear, I'm ready to move into my ministry, and I got it. I knew I was in alignment with the universe. And 30 days later, my wife said to me, I don't want to be married to you anymore. Okay? And in the middle of the grief of that, I also went, and now I can move into my ministry. Because as a friend of mine said, David, you're like a racehorse. You're ready to go. You're standing in the gate. You're ready to go on the track. And she's having this pasturing period where she wants to step back and relax. Neither one is wrong or right. It's just we were in completely different phases. Okay? And so what looked like a tragedy for me at the moment turned out to be also the best thing that I could have happen, because I got on with my ministry. That's why I'm standing here today, doing what I love with people I love. Okay? So we don't know the results. What looks like a setback, what feels terrible, that felt terrible for me. I had this whole ministry, I had this whole dream of this relationship and this co-ministry we were going to do together, and it all collapsed. It had been kind of teetering for quite a while, but it all finally collapsed and had to go through that. So we have these things, we have these setbacks. It's what we do with the setbacks afterwards. Do we remember that God is greater than the stuff? God is always greater than the stuff. Ernest Holmes says that God plus one is a majority, or one plus God is a majority. When I'm in alignment with Spirit, I can create the life that I want. If I'm worried that we're going to have a world that's less unified, what is mine to do? Mine is to do whatever is mine to do about being unified, about working with people, about accepting diversity, about encouraging diversity, about being part of that process. I was meeting with the Interfaith Forum folks this week, and they said, one of the things we can do is to just simply show up for the Interfaith Forum Thanksgiving celebration this coming Sunday evening. Because we celebrate diversity of religion. We celebrate diversity of people. If you want to take a stand, and a fairly easy and enjoyable stand, come to that service. Be present for that. Find ways that you can say, I take a stand for this. I don't care who I voted for. These are my values. These are my values. If I'm afraid that there's no respect for women or whatever, be respectful. If you're a woman, be respectful to yourself and your fellow women. If you're a man, be respectful to women and your own divine feminine. Okay. So, what are the values that we want to implement? I don't care who's in the office up there. We get to determine our values, right? We determine our values. It's like Viktor Frankl sitting in the Nazi concentration camp, not letting the Nazis determine how he would feel, but saying, this is how I'm going to feel. I choose love. In the midst of this horror, I choose love. Trained thought is more powerful than untrained thought. Trained thought. That is where we take it and say, this is the way I'm moving, and I know how to move my thought in that direction. And we, if you've taken classes, if we've studied religious science, know how to train our thought. We know how to say, I'm going this way, and not letting myself get scattered all over the place. But we have to be careful about what we train our thought towards. We have to be for something and against nothing. That's what Ernest Holmes encourages us to be. For something. For what it is that I want, and not against somebody or something. Where do I want to go? And this other person who may trigger us may remind us of what it is that we value. I may see somebody who reminds me that what I really value is acceptance of diversity. What I really value is compassion, love, and caring. What I really value is this. And I may see this person acting out something other than that, but that's just a reminder for me, wait, what I really value is this. It's again, a wake-up call for that. What do I really feel? It's sort of like when you go for a job interview and you go into the job and you find out this isn't what I wanted. What I then know is I know more about what I do want because I've looked at this and said, oh, this isn't it. Oftentimes when I can figure out what it isn't that I want, I'm closer to figuring out what it is. Does that make sense? Yeah. With me? Okay. So we have to train our thought to the establishment of what we truly value. What is it that I truly value? What do I truly want in this situation? And what do I want in this situation that gives more life and harms no one? More life and harms no one. So we have to trust divine intelligence. Like Arjuna trusted Krishna, we have to trust that divine intelligence. We have to trust it and let it move through us. We have to be an opening that says, you know what, I'm willing to get deeper into my spiritual practice. I'm willing to get deeper into listening to Spirit and acting from Spirit. You know, a friend of mine said, you know, we could have elected Hillary and stayed asleep for 4 more years and pretended that everything was okay. But what we've seen out of this election process is we've seen the shadow side of the United States, right? Yes? Okay. So we can no longer say, oh, there's no racism here. We all get along well. There's none of this stuff, going on here. We've seen it, and it doesn't matter who got elected. We've seen it show up, very pronounced. Okay. There are kids in schools, even right here in Shasta County, who are being told, go back to whatever country your parents were from, and all that stuff happening right here. Okay. And because of this election, in some ways, that has been branded as more okay than it ever was. And so what we need to do is be a place where we stand up and say, no, that's not okay. It never was okay, still is not okay. We're here to love and respect. We're here to love and respect. Because the truth of us is that unless you're Native American, all of us could go back to where our parents or some generation back came from. Right? We were all immigrants. So do we really believe that this is all God? And that this, the solution that we have, the thing right in front of us, is the answered prayer. A whole lot of us have been praying for a world that works for all. Change in the way it's been. Guess what? Here it is. And sometimes what shows up first is the stuff that we don't like, so we can look at it and clear it out. We have to look at this, the shadow side. And we also then need to let the answer continue to unfold. Many of you know the story of the farmer who had a horse. And the horse escaped, and everybody in the town said, oh, that's terrible. What bad luck for you. And the man says, we'll see. Next night, the horse comes back with 5 more horses. And they say, what good fortune for you. My God, you've gone from 1 horse to 5 horses. And he says, we'll see. A couple days later, his son is breaking in the horse, and the horse throws one of the new horses, throws him, breaks his leg. The people all say, oh, that's terrible. A couple days later, the young man says, what? We'll see. Okay? And then the army comes through conscripting all the healthy young men for a rather suicidal war, and they don't take the son because he's got a broken leg, and they say, what good fortune? And the man says, we'll see. Okay? See, we're just at one page of a story. Guess what? The story is still going. The story is still going. I had a friend who was going through a real rough time in her life, and she was walking along the beach one day just in deep grief and deep prayer, and she said she heard this voice say, this is just one chapter in your story. It's a dark chapter, to be sure, but it's just one chapter, and there's more coming. There's more story to come. And today that friend is a lot happier than she ever was before that. So can we walk through this chapter and recognize it as this is just a chapter in a story? And Spirit is continually and continuously in charge. And can we be the opening to allow that spiritual nature, that deep spirit, that love, that good, that wholeness, that compassion to be present here? Can we be open to that? And we, being conscious beings, we get to co-create the story. We get to co-create the story. So are we willing to let it unfold? Paul reminds us also in Ephesians, we walk by faith and not by sight. See, sight is, I'm looking at the effects out there. I'm looking at this stuff out here. Faith is, I'm looking within. First cause is always within. The cause is within. Out here is the result, the effect of the cause. Where am I walking? Where am I looking? And I need to deeply and lovingly look into cause and say, you know what? I'm willing to align more deeply than ever before with cause. I don't know about you, but sometimes I've been lazy about that. Okay? And I felt this call. I felt this call, the same call that I felt on September 11th, 2001. When we had an illusion that we were a wonderful, safe country, nobody could harm us over here, and we got that shattered, right? Yes? Yeah. And I know that myself and a number of other people said, you know what, we can't be lazy in our faith anymore. We need to go deeper. That was when I started practitioner studies. That's when friends of mine started who had been kind of hanging around the Center for Spiritual Living in Seattle, started actually really taking classes and getting deep into it. And really saying, you know, we need to change something. We need to change within. We need to be points of light and allow ourselves to glow. So sight looks without, at the outside. Faith looks within to cause. See, I know that light is pushing up the darkness. It's pushing it up and it's pushing it out. Say that with me. I know that the light is pushing the darkness up and out. Okay. One of my teachers always said that whatever you're going for, the quality, God quality you're going for, brings up anything unlike itself for the purpose of healing and release. Here we are. We're going for light. We're going for a greater and more conscious, more loving America, and a greater and more conscious, more loving world. I love the timing of Mary's class, you know, Sacred America, Sacred World, which is really looking at that consciousness. How can I be more sacred in my consciousness? Okay. We don't have to fight the darkness. We don't have to fight the darkness. When you walk into a room and you flip on a light switch, does the light and the dark have a battle? No. I don't notice little bloody pieces of darkness, you know, crawling your way out the door, you know? Okay? It doesn't have to. When you flip on the light just simply comes on. It's on. Darkness is just simply the absence of light. And so when light is present, it's just present. It doesn't have to do battle with darkness. We don't have to do battle. We have to be the light. That's all we have to do. Darkness just collapses upon itself. So this week, I want to invite us to do three things. The first one is to be gentle and compassionate with ourselves and others. Be gentle and compassionate. You know, I walked in, one of the reasons I'm talking about this is I walked into the office on Wednesday morning and I had volunteers and staff there with tears running down their faces and people angry and you know, and all that. So I know that there's, you know, stuff going on for people. Okay? Pardon me? Angst? Yeah. So be gentle with yourself. Grieve if you need to. Celebrate if you need to. Being gentle with yourself and with others. Stay away from those that are engaged in the darkness. Right now, I know Reverend Sue and I were just talking beforehand. It's like, can't watch the news right now. You know, I stay away from certain of my friends on Facebook because I just, you know, don't need any more. Thank you right now. So stay away from people who are engaged in the darkness. And they're not bad. They're just not as awake as they could be at the moment. They're not bad people. See, that's one of the things we have to be careful of is labeling people. And we watched it throughout the election. You know, there's all Mexicans are rapists or, you know, whatever. There's the deplorables. You know, both sides were doing it. People aren't deplorable and people aren't this. You know, not all Muslims are terrorists. Okay? So it's ours to look and see people, to see the God in people, no matter who we voted for. It's also okay to feel tender right now. It's part of being compassionate with yourself. Is just notice if you feel tender right now, it's okay. You don't have to stay there and you won't stay there forever, but it's okay to acknowledge that you are there. The second practice is spend time contemplating the love of the divine. Spend time contemplating where we want to go, what we truly believe in. We believe in God, one infinite presence, always present. We believe in a God that is pure love and pure good. And if we spend our time contemplating that and allowing that to fill us, instead of the fear, the panic, the dread, the anger, the whatever, no matter who the president is, we direct our own attention. You and I control our own attention. So this is a call to be very careful with our attention. And then the last thing is be the qualities that you want to see in the world. Be those qualities. Be, again, the compassion. Be the kindness. Be the love. Be the respect. That's for us to do. Following a setback that a guy named David, who was a little before my time, he was back in the Bible time, King David, had a few setbacks in his life. And he'd write about them every once in a while and produce these beautiful things called Psalms. So out of Psalm 71, slightly rephrased, it says, "In you, Spirit, I put my trust. Let me never be confused." See, if I'm wavering my thought away from Spirit, I get into confusion. So let me put my focus on Spirit. In you, Spirit, I put my trust, and let me never be confused. Be to me a sheltering rock, whereunto I may be continually comforted. For you are my rock and my fortress. Deliver me, O Spirit, out of the hand of the wicked, out of the hand of the unrighteous and cruel man. For you are my hope, O Spirit. You are my trust since birth. I invite you to spend time this week trusting in Spirit, walking in Spirit, and being that expression of Spirit on this planet. So let's move into prayer. And so there is only one. There's only one life. I absolutely know that God is all there is. Infinite presence of love, of wisdom, of life energy. That presence is all that there is. Only one. And because it is all that there is, you and I and everyone are included within this one life. All are within this one life. All circumstances, all people, all animals, the planet, the universe, all of it is within this one life. And that life is in an order and a harmony that may be beyond our understanding of our rational, finite minds, but it is in an order and a harmony. And you and I are one of that. You and I are immersed in this one right here, right now. You and I are safe in this one. This world is safe in this one. No matter what we've been convinced to believe otherwise, the world is safe in this one infinite presence. And so I speak my word that we remember this truth, that we are the place that stands in consciousness in a majority with God, stating our clear-cut intention that this world is a place, this country is a place that is safe, that it is an expression of the highest values, of the core values that we as Americans have stood for. Liberty and justice for all. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for all. That we are that place. We stand in this awareness and recognize that more important than who is elected is who we elect to be. That we are the creators of our world. And that our trained thought, our collective consciousness, and the nature of spirit that wants to express through all of life anyways, always calls us to something higher. That is the nature of spirit. And I trust that spirit. And so in gratitude for each of us who is saying yes to this call, in gratitude for each of us who trusts and believes in and walks in this consciousness for the highest and greatest good of everyone, of all people, I'm so grateful. And so I release this word into that law, knowing that it is already done, it is already so. We establish that it is so in our minds, we let it be. And together we affirm that by saying, and so it is. Thank you.